What's up, guys? I'm back with another video, and today I thought about talking about what is true power. I had this idea literally 5 seconds ago. I always say that, but that really is true. I was thinking, what kind of video could I make on my way home from work? I got a little fat boy making McDonald's sauce. And I was thinking about it. My fiance was having some issues at work with management. If you work, you know that a lot of times you can work at a certain place and things don't run the way they ought to because management misuses their authority. And this is just an interesting concept to me personally because it dumbfounds me when I see people that have legitimate power or influence in some environment that they're in, and they misuse it, and they use it inappropriately, or they use it without any what do you want to say? They try to control absolutely everything. And when I imagine someone in a position of authority, obviously that person has responsibilities. A large part of the responsibilities is maintaining the workflow, making sure people do what they're supposed to do. Like at the end of the day, that's their primary role. Like, you steer the ship, and you're the federal head of your corporation or your business, whatever. And you obviously have to instill certain values into your workforce in order to get people motivated, in order to build camaraderie. And camaraderie is a very big thing. It's probably hard to bring in culture in some kind of workplace environment, or in any context, really, in your home, on your sports team, whatever the case is. But I was just kind of thinking about that and kind of defining what power is and what influence is. That's my first task, and then I might go into different areas and touch on different things. But when I imagine someone that I'm working for, or someone that has some leverage, or not even leverage, but positional authority over me, first of all, they have to be someone worth following. They have to be respectable. They have to have consistent standards. They can't show partiality. That's one quick way for me that causes a little, what do you want to say? I find myself not necessarily resisting authority, but doing only that which I am responsible for doing. And usually when you have employees or you have coworkers that kind of exude some selfishness, and they're only going to do what they're required to do, and then they never go above and beyond. Sometimes it is the person is lazy and the person doesn't, they're jaded, they don't want to be there. That's definitely a reality. I'm not saying it's all employers' fault for that. But some of the time, there's some inconsistent standard that causes employees to not trust your leadership. And I've run into this many times where I see inconsistent standards at work. And my first reaction was, well, I'm not going to comply unless there's an equal distribution of compliance. So if you're going to be partial and you're going to single people out, then you by definition don't have rules. And so you can't pick and choose when you want to apply standards. Standards are meant to be consistent. Standards are meant to be applicable for everybody under them. That's the definition of a law or a rule itself. Everybody is bound to this. And if people get in line, then there will be freedom. Like, I don't have to hover over you. And if I was an employer, that's one thing that I would want to make clear that I'm going to walk in every day in uniform. I don't care if I'm in a truck or not, if I'm working, if I'm delivering or not at FedEx. I don't like seeing managers have expectations they don't feel themselves. That's the surest sign that you're going to create some kind of discord in your group, and that's not what you need, right? You want to rally the troops, and you can't do that if you're telling every employee to be in uniform and you're not in uniform. Like, that's unacceptable. That's really annoying. So, but to get into the idea of power, I think a lot of people imagine that power and influence is something that you have and you can distribute at your own whim, and it's sometimes people might imagine that it's supposed to be selfish and completely self-interested, and you can do as you please, and because you have ultimate leverage over people, it doesn't really matter if people like it or not. And that's really not true power. In my imagination, being powerful is equivalent of being impactful and being influential. So other people that are around you are necessarily transformed in some way. They're enriched. They're better because your presence affects them. It changes them. Whether you do that emotionally or you do that logistically or logically, either one works, right? It depends on what's needed in the moment and for the person. But giving valuable information to people that they might find useful. I mean, today, which I personally really enjoy doing that. There was a girl that used to run my old route at work, and she asked me about how I ran it, and I just started giving her all this information of like, well, the reason I run this route the way that I do is because of X, Y, and Z. And if you replicate the same route, or you basically run the route the way that I ran it, I can promise you it'll cut down 30, 40 minutes of your time. Like, I've gone through the brunt work of figuring out the most efficient way to run the route because I don't feel like being out there all day. So it's in my self-interest to figure it out on whatever route I'm on, and then you can pass down valuable information to people that might need it. That's a great example. And that's, I'm not saying that I always impact my team positively, because I certainly don't. I can definitely struggle with not attitude problems consistently. The only time I get getting a bad attitude is when I know that there's a double standard going on, or there's some problem that the people I'm working for aren't solving quick enough, or something as simple as getting dollies for every truck, right? When we deliver, we obviously deliver heavy stuff, and so it would be nice to have a dolly for every truck. And then you'll come in and you find that someone took your dolly, even though we lock them up, and you try to get one, there's a shortage, there's not enough dollies, but we spend money on nice FedEx sweatshirts, not even nice, or getting breakfast in the morning because we have good service. And it's like, that's all well and good, and I'm all for positive reinforcement. I think it works better than negative reinforcement in most circumstances. However, people need tools to do their job well, right? They need necessary tools like a dolly in order for them to not get jaded and pissed off because they don't have a dolly to use when they have a 130-pound package to drop off at a house. It's like, I would opt out of the breakfast every morning and to reinvest that money into dollies so I don't break my back trying to drop these stupid packages off. It's little things like that. And my managers they're pretty good, like compared to other contractors and managers I've worked for in the past. And managers face their own challenges. They have their own challenges. They have far more responsibilities and risk than employees do. And so they have to think about budget. They have to think about the fact that people steal their stuff. They have to think about all these different things. And so there's definitely grace there. It's like, it's really easy as an employee to be jaded with your employer without understanding the responsibilities the employer actually has. That doesn't mean that your employer is great. There are many employers that suck, and they don't listen to feedback. They're stubborn. They don't they micromanage you. They don't problem solve well. Like the managers like that definitely exist. There's no doubt about it. But ultimately, if you have leverage in some system, if you're a manager or you're an employer or you're a leader in some capacity, then your responsibility increases with your authority. Your responsibility increases with your role, and you should be wielding that humbly, passionately, strongly, for the end of the whole system that you're managing to be better because of you than without you. And it doesn't mean that you get prideful and you think that, I'm indispensable, and if I weren't here, nothing would run. That mentality will cause you to be a micromanager and arrogant and someone that's not enjoyable to work for. However, it's like, if I am in this position, I want something to change. That's why I'm in the position I'm in. And so I'm going to ensure that things do change. And that's my whole purpose. So power requires embetterment of those underneath you. If people are jaded, or if people don't like working for you collectively, yes, is it possible you have a bunch of scrubs? Yeah, probably, it's possible. Or is that relevant feedback where you're like, okay, well, maybe there's something that I'm doing wrong, and a good leader will ask his employees, like, I'm not above you in the sense that I can't change or I can't learn things. Like, if I'm doing something wrong, give me feedback, obviously respectfully, but give me feedback, and I'll assess whether or not it's valid. And if it's valid, then I want to change that. And that's a very honorable thing to do. And people that work for you will, at the very least, be able to say that about you. So what else was I going to say? I mean, for one, it's a fun place to be in, where everybody thinks this, that they want their presence to be validated in some way, right? You don't want to be in some environment, whether it's at work, at home, or at school, wherever, and your presence is inconsequential. It doesn't affect anything, right? That would seem like, effectively, you have no purpose, or you have no reason being there, right? And that's a sucky place to be, where you feel useless, and you don't want to be in that position, right? Which everybody has. I've been in that position before too. But it's also a learning moment. Like, there might be some truth to the fact that you may not be very helpful. And you may not be very helpful because you may not have the resources or the tools in order to be helpful. Well, then it's like, okay, well, if that's the case, how do I acquire the resources to be helpful? Well, what's available to you immediately? Are there other people who have more tools and resources than you do? If the answer is yes, then it's like, well, then I need to reach out and I need to ask them questions about how they do things and how I can improve and get better. And once you get better, your value at that place increases, and your leverage or your power increases alongside that. And so then you're able to actually use the tools that you've acquired to enrich the environment that you're in, and to make other people better as a result. which is a very rewarding feeling. Now, obviously, it's not as, I'm not saying it's, I mean, I do think that in some sense it's not that simple. In another sense it is. Like, resources and information you can always acquire, and if you just have the will to ask the question and to humble yourself and figure out, okay, well, I'm so annoyed that I suck at what I do that this is pissing me off to the point where I'm going to get better at it with every ounce of energy I have in my body. I don't care what it takes. I'm going to figure it out, because I know for myself, I hate like not being good at something that I know that I should be good at. Pisses me off. There are certain things that I know that I'm not good at, and it's like a waste of time to get better at it. But if there are things that would increase your value and you know other people can do it, well, it's like, okay, well, if I work really hard, I should be able to learn how to do this at least better. That's a win. It's better than what you were before, right? And so there's just so much, I don't know, I find that at work a lot. There are so many problems that seem to have easy solutions, and things could be solved so much quicker, but often aren't, and it just kind of dumbfounds me. There's a cop right there. But it just shows you that people are complicated, relationships are complicated, and relationships at work are complicated because people have feelings, and people, the biggest thing is when something isn't done. The one thing that I hate more than ever is having some problem at work. I'm kind of just going off here, and knowing the problem, addressing the problem, and then the problem return, and there's people don't do what they're supposed to do in order to make sure that doesn't happen again. That stuff triggers me, where I'm like, you know that I've had this package for 2 weeks and there's no one at this house, or it's a wrong address, and you give it to the person who's responsible for dealing with that very situation, and because they're primarily self-interested and they don't want to do their job, they just ignore it or place it back on you, push the ball back on your court. And it's like, that's when I start getting jaded, and I say, well, for the next month, I'm not touching this package. And they're like, well, you're not being a team player. No, I'm not stupid, and I know that he's not doing his job, so I'm not picking up his slack. Like, why would I do that? So, yeah, I'm just kind of giving some commentary, but that's all I have. I just got home, so peace.